Today I'm going to sort of reflect on my experiences within the SUPERGEN programme, which is actually remarkably 10 years ago since I left Imperial College, almost to the day. I started at UCL on the 4th of July 2011, and before that I was a PhD student and then a postdoc working under the auspices of the SUPERGEN fuel cells programme. And obviously since leaving Imperial, I've been actively engaged with a number of the activities that Nigel mentioned in his opening slides, and so it's great to be able to just take the opportunity to reflect on all the things that have been achieved and the great successes of the SUPERGEN programme more widely. So thanks for the invitation. I thought this was an opportunity for a bit of a trip down memory lane, and so I managed to dig out a photograph from 2007 which showed the fuel cell group at the time outside the main entrance to the Earth Science and Engineering department at Imperial. And I think one of the key things that I learned from the experiences within the SUPERGEN programme was not just the great science that can be done and the exciting breakthroughs that can be made, and I'll hopefully touch upon some of those throughout today's talk, but also, and perhaps most importantly, the relationships and the networks that were established through the programme, the very collaborative research philosophy that was a cornerstone of the SUPERGEN projects and continues to be. And I'm delighted that actually 14 or more years on from when this photograph was taken, I'm still in very regular contact with most of the people in this photograph and have very active research collaborations with a number of them. So I think that as a ambition for the project to foster collaborative research, it's been really extremely successful, and very grateful for my experiences as a PhD student and a postdoc. I really couldn't have wished for a better start to my research career. So during my time at Imperial, we sort of begun to look at three-dimensional imaging of solid oxide fuel cell electrodes, and I sort of just put a few examples of the types of work that we were doing between sort of 2006 and 2011. Around that time, we first had the possibilities to look at electrode architectures in 3 dimensions, initially using focused ion beam scanning electron microscopy, slice and view techniques to build up these first 3-dimensional pictures of what SOFC electrodes look like in 3D in real life. And that was hugely exciting because it was, really at the vanguard of being able to do this 3-dimensional imaging. We were also at the vanguard not only of doing FIB-SEM, but also of using non-destructive X-ray nanocomputer tomography, firstly using laboratory sources, and secondly moving towards synchrotron imaging. And one of the great advantages, obviously, of X-ray techniques is the ability to look at not just 3-dimensional images, but also 4-dimensional images using in situ and operando microscopy to understand how electrode architectures evolve over time and in response to a range of different processing conditions. And actually, this sort of workflow of 3-dimensional imaging, in situ imaging, and image-based modelling has really continued to be a key part of the work that I've continued to do since, both on fuel cells and on a range of other electrochemical devices. This is a slide that I actually dug up from a PowerPoint deck from about 10 years ago that talks about the sort of range of tools and techniques that we have to connect the length scales from the individual particle all the way up to the full electrode and finally up to the whole device. And again, a key theme of my research moving forward has been stitching together all of these different 3-dimensional imaging modalities to have a hopefully comprehensive picture of these materials as they're assembled from the nanoparticle all the way through to the device. And I'm going to try and just touch on a couple of examples of how we do that. So here's some work that was done under the auspices of one of the hydrogen fuel cells challenge grants called Electrode Microstructure by Design, where we were working closely with colleagues at Imperial and elsewhere to look at the architecture of designer morphologies for microtubular solid oxide fuel cells. And so using a range of X-ray micro and nano CT techniques, we can build up quite detailed pictures of exactly what the device and the electrode architecture looks like. And as we zoom in and we piece together that jigsaw puzzle of how particles are assembled into electrodes and into devices, we see complexity at many different length scales. And here we can see an image of how you can characterize the triple phase boundary density within one of those electrodes, and perhaps combine that with relevant simulations. Here you can see the permeability of gases within that structure, and a core theme both of the SUPERGEN work and of the work moving forward has been trying to establish rational relationships between the morphology of an electrode and the performance of the device. And a key to do that is not only to make these nice three-dimensional images, but to use them as the direct simulation framework for understanding transport properties, understanding electrochemistry, and a similar approach that Chong reflected on with her lattice Boltzmann simulation. I really think that by bringing together experimentalists and modelers, we all are greater than the sum of our parts. And again, that is a philosophy that was very much part of the SUPERGEN work, was bringing together multidisciplinary communities and establishing linkages between modelers and experimentalists. I mentioned that one of the advantages of X-ray techniques in particular was their non-destructive nature, and so we can not only explore what an electrode looks like, but we can also see how it changes in response to a range of different conditions. So, for example, at very high resolution, we can look with nanocomputer tomography to understand how an electrode evolves during annealing steps, or, for example, using X-ray diffraction computer tomography to see how a microtubular fuel cell will evolve during operation. The bottom example combines the advantages not just of three-dimensional imaging, but also of X-ray diffraction. And we continue to try and extend our investigations to the third, fourth, and perhaps even the fifth dimension to understand not only the morphology of the electrodes and how it changes over time, but also to understand the crystallography of those materials and to explore the associated crystallographic and chemical changes that occur during processing, operation, and ultimately during degradation and failure. This, and there's a nice three-dimensional image of what that electrode looks like after annealing. This approach is not just applied to solid oxide fuel cells. We also actively look at polymer electrolyte fuel cells, electrolyzers, and other electrochemical devices. And I wanted just to capture a couple of examples here of correlated X-ray tomography and neutron tomography, where we've been able to use X-ray CT to understand the electrode architecture and neutron tomography to understand the water management within devices. And this is some very recent work that's been done particularly by Ralph Zischer and Jen Hack, where we've extended the conventional neutron radiography, which is typically used to understand water management within fuel cells, into the third and fourth dimension to look at neutron tomography to understand how the water buildup evolves in an operating device as a function of time. And moving forward, I think there's hugely exciting opportunities to continue to extend the correlated imaging platform, leveraging the advantages of X-rays, both for imaging and for diffraction, neutrons to particularly leverage their sensitivity to nuclear density and hydrogen and water, and really build up as far as possible the most comprehensive map of all of these different devices that will, in combination with modelling, hopefully inform both the design of the materials and the operational strategies of how to best operate these devices in real life. And so just to close, I wanted to sort of thank all the people that had contributed to this work and also reflect on the sort of team effort mentality that I think was really a cornerstone of the SUPERGEN programme and continues to be so. The kickstart for my research career through the SUPERGEN programme was really a huge benefit for me to be involved in. I mentioned that a number of the collaborators that we saw in that photograph back from 2007 are still very active contacts and collaborators, and as I say, it really instilled in me a philosophy for collaborative research that I've been delighted to continue ever since. So time flies remarkably fast, and as I said, it's now almost to the day 10 years since I left Imperial to move to UCL, but I'm extremely grateful to the SUPERGEN for that foundation of my research career and for their ongoing support, some of the examples of which you've seen there. As I say, it's not just the technical foundation that I've taken forward from the SUPERGEN programme, it's very much the philosophy of multidisciplinary and collaborative working. So thanks again for the invitation to speak today, and at the end of the session I'd be delighted to take any questions. So thank you so much.